Welcome to Trent's Game Room, the show where I talk about games that I'm playing recently, some new, some old, just stuff that I've loved, stuff that I like, sometimes stuff I don't like. I'm just going to show you some gameplay and give you my overall impressions. I found a microphone under my couch and I have opinions, so I thought, why not put this on the internet? Today we're going to be talking about Metal Gear Solid Delta. This is the Snake Eater remake. After the pachinko machine fiasco and the Kojima drama, man, we weren't sure if we'd ever see another Metal Gear Solid game. And of course, we had the catastrophe that was Metal Gear Survive, which doused all hopes and possibilities of us ever getting a true Metal Gear experience on any kind of current generation consoles or PC. And for a long time, Metal Gear Solid was trapped on PlayStation consoles. So now with this new series, this is an opportunity for new players who may have never played Metal Gear Solid before to get in on the most macho Cold War era badass that ever lived, spy shit on just about every console. Except Nintendo, of course. Furthermore, the PlayStation 2 is an old machine, man, and the controls were a little janky in the original. You want the modern gameplay conveniences and ease of use, the basics of just being able to crouch walk and aim over the shoulder. So Metal Gear Solid Delta adds a lot more modern controls to the game. It gives you the opportunity to go into first-person view, and yes, you can play almost the whole game in first-person view, but you're walking really, really slow if you do it that way. So I don't recommend playing it that way, but I am pleased to say that this, generally speaking, gives me all the best vibes from everything that I loved about the original, but it puts it in a much more modern kind of packaging. And what I mean by that is that you're gonna feel a level of stealth and a level of enemy AI that with modern controls, it feels like still better than any Assassin's Creed game by miles. And I know this because I'd been recently playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is fine and dandy, and I won't go into that other than to just say there is a dramatic difference in the quality of stealth and the feeling of tension. In Snake Eater Delta, you do not want to get spotted. If you get spotted, you absolutely have to haul ass and find a place to hide. There are stakes and consequences, man. That's going to piss off and frustrate a lot of maybe players who aren't used to such hardcore stealth. If you're used to something like Assassin's Creed and any of the recent Assassin's Creed games, you can just go level up, power up, and then if you get spotted, you just fight your way out. With this, you want to do everything you can to really sneak through areas. And when you do, it feels awesome, man. Like going through one of these zones, choking out every fool that you run into, not getting spotted at all, with none of that enemy marking or like seeing them through walls or any of that bullshit. You're just like listening for footsteps and peeking around corners, creeping up behind these dudes and choking them out. No alerts, no surprises. And you just feel like the most ultimate 1970s badass, actually it's the 60s, sneaking into old Soviet bases, swapping out your camo, hiding from these guards as they're patrolling. And yes, they are highly intelligent. They talk to each other. They will smoke you out. They will try to organize their communication as long as they don't have to climb ladders. They can't climb ladders. It's impossible. They've added a lot here. They used a lot of the original animation information from the PS2 version of the game, but they've also included more sidestepping and animation blending, things that just weren't technically possible at the time. But I want to be clear, if you played the original and you're thinking, I don't want just a reskin, I don't want just a graphical upgrade, because that was my original concern. I was like, if they're just doing the same game, exact same game, but just with better graphics, I don't know if that's worth $60 or whatever. But I'm going to tell you now, man, it's way more than that. Part of that is because of the controls. Part of that is also because of the level of detail they added to everything. It's not just upgraded animations. It's all the animation blending. The characters, they move very realistically. If you do get spotted, yes, you can Rambo your way through the whole damn game, but It's not advisable as it does affect your overall scoring. Like, yes, you get ranked at the end of each playthrough. And yeah, guns feel good. Yeah, you can blast your way through. But for some reason, that doesn't feel nearly as satisfying as stealthing your way through. And quite frankly, this is the kind of game that's designed for you to play it multiple times. There's a very strong likelihood that you will not, and I don't even think it's possible to see everything if you just play this game once. Part of what makes Metal Gear Solid freaking unbelievably magical is that you can play around with scenarios in different weapons, and enemies will behave in unique and believable ways that they otherwise, in most games, they would never bother with. So a great example of this would be just simply the number of ways that you can escape from the prison cell. At some point, you might find yourself in a jail cell. And if you do, there are about 8 different ways for you to get out of that situation, just utilizing the few tools that you have in that particular scenario. It's possible to play through the entire game peacefully, and by that I mean using nothing but stealth tranquilizers on all the enemies, all the guards, and all of the bosses, except for a couple that have to die for the story to move forward. So if you're like a hippie kumbaya pacifist, you can literally play through the whole game without killing anybody. And yes, that rewards you with new equipment for doing that. It's like every item has 50 different uses for it. So if you have an outfit or disguise or something like that, and you use that during a particular boss fight, if that particular boss knows that character that you're disguised as, it might give you a little window to get an advantage during that boss fight. So there's all kinds of creativity from the player. In fact, it demands creativity from the player. Another beautiful thing about the game is that there is a way to play the game with different visual filters on, and my preferred method is to play it with the legacy filter, which captures the lighting and atmosphere of the original PlayStation 2 version, but they also have things that like put it into a 1980s action film kind of an atmosphere, or a much more modern kind of a high contrast atmosphere. But I highly recommend you switch it over to the legacy filter, which is really just the color post-processing that you got. It looks closer to the original PS2 version. A very important component of the game is the survival aspects. So there are animals all over these jungles, all over these forests, and you can either kill them or trap them in a little cage. Eating an animal will refill your stamina. If you don't eat animals and you get low on stamina, your aim starts to get wobbly and your stomach will growl. And yes, your stomach growling will give away your position to patrolling guards. But it's not like all of the food or animals that you find in the environment are actually edible. You might find that some of them are poisonous. And so if you eat those, you have to heal yourself. And that means going into another submenu and actually putting bandages on broken bones, or taking a digestive pill or an antiviral pill if you get something like a stomach virus, for example. And you can also take that same food and throw it at enemies. So for example, you could capture a live snake and you could throw that at an enemy, and then that snake will get wrapped up around them, and then they get bitten and they get poisoned. So you can kind of quickly begin to imagine a lot of scenarios where you can just try out things. So for example, just adding a poisonous frog to an environment suddenly creates potential gameplay solutions that you might not immediately think of, because most games just don't let you do this sort of a thing. In fact, most games can't. As a video game developer myself, I can tell you that's the kind of stuff that sends a game way over budget. They call it feature creep, which is very likely why Kojima got kicked out of Konami. He spent way too much money on crazy shit like being able to hijack the enemy frequency and then call off the alert, or kill a boss in a cutscene like 2 hours before you're supposed to encounter them, and you don't even have to fight that boss anymore because you killed him in a cutscene like 2 hours ago. Like, how weird is that? What most people don't realize is if you change something like that, if you let the player have that level of freedom, you have to create all of the content for the contingency for that event to not happen, and then something else has to happen. And that could take months of time. You have to have resources and a team that's able to address those things. And that means the budget balloons out of control, and then the game gets delayed, and then the executives start barking down at the director going, why isn't this game done when you said it was going to be done, and you're like, well, we didn't expect the player would be able to kill this character in a cutscene like 2 hours before. They got a plan for all these things. As a developer, it's absolutely freaking insane, and it's no surprise to me that Kojima suffered from so many health issues throughout the development of every single game that he's worked on, because he's got to put in 1,000,001 awesome gameplay things that make no business sense at all, but they absolutely tickle the brain of every gamer that plays them. And there's so many of them. There's things that happen in this playthrough of Snake Eater that I have never had happen before, but I looked them up online and they were there in the original too. So to give you an idea of how much I enjoyed this game, I consider this game the game of the year for 2025. Nothing else even comes close, and we played some pretty good games this year, but Snake Eater Delta pretty much tickles all of my bones. Can I say it tickles my bones without getting deplatformed? I don't... Sings to my soul. This game sings to my soul. As far as value goes, there's so much content here. You've also got games, mini games, that you might not even get to see if you don't perform specific actions. I'm trying to be very vague so that I don't give away any spoilers. But there are scenarios that occur that if you're not knowledgeable about how to unlock them, you won't ever see them. And there's things where if you just turn off your machine, if you have food in your equipment and that you haven't used, it spoils, and then it can make you sick. Like, there's so many layers of things that you just wouldn't think. No other game has ever gone this fourth wall with a game before, other than another Kojima game, for example, which don't even get me started on my absolute favorite, Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation 1. The story's pretty top-notch. The main character's pretty macho at most of the time, but he's still struggling with his purpose as a soldier, asking difficult questions that a character in this situation would ask, like, what is the purpose of a soldier? If you're just following orders, you're just a drone, but they're humans, And so, like, there's this real difficult internal struggle going on with the main character. Like, that's something that I think Call of Duty just never gets. Like, when I play Call of Duty, I'm like, it's about the scenarios. I don't care about story, or I don't care about these characters. But with Metal Gear, I'm deeply invested. They did a damn good job with the voice acting and the mocap as well, and the animations, the cutscenes. Now, the downsides. There are only 2 downsides to this, and it might not bother you. For one, it's made in Unreal Engine 5, and there are some performance issues. I got a lot of ghosting at some points, and I'm playing on PlayStation 5 Pro. So that's a bit of a drag, and I don't know exactly. Personally, I didn't really affect my gameplay at all, and I found that most of the time it wasn't really stuttering of any kind, and this is pretty much, I got it day one. And the second thing that people might have a problem with is that it is pretty much exactly the same game, except for a couple of little lines of dialogue that were re-recorded for whatever reason. And being that it is pretty much exactly the same game, gameplay experience, people who got the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection just 2 years ago or less are probably going to be like, well, wait a minute, I already just went through all this. If that was your first exposure to Metal Gear, then this might be a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, it's a massive graphical overhaul, and it offers so much more level of detail to everything. Like, when you are going through the fight with the end and it starts to rain, I mean, the atmosphere, the tone, it's just so rich. Everything about this game screams quality as far as I'm concerned, from top to bottom, soup to nuts. Like, you cannot get much better in terms of military science fiction than Metal Gear Solid, and this was the best place to start. Like, being able to explore other Metal Gear games with this level of fidelity is an exciting prospect. I don't really want them to do the Shadow Moses PlayStation 1 remake because it's already perfect, but this gives me so much hope for more Metal Gear. And quite frankly, I miss characters like this. This game embodies the fantasy of being a Cold War era spy behind enemy lines. It's just truly magnificent, very replayable. I myself platinumed this game on the PlayStation 5, and I still play it. I've seen it all. I still want to play it. I've unlocked every cutscene and even the secret theater and all the Snake versus Monkey. I've done it all, but I still want more. Not much more to say there other than just, go buy this game. Metal Gear Solid Delta. Snake Eater. Like and subscribe. See you.